Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM, AM 630. WMAL.
7:37 with the Morning Majority. Trevor Matich is on the line. Talk a little bit about the Redskins. But Trevor, I want to get first in this Penn State thing if I could. When you were in college, Penn State was a powerhouse as well, like they've been for quite some time. I'm just curious, this timeline about Sandusky retiring just sticks out like a sore thumb to me, that why he would retire at the age of 55 when he was still considered one of the best defensive minds in the game. I know Penn State says, well, Paterno told him he wasn't going to be his successor, but it just seemed kind of strange to me that he would retire at the age of 55 when he was still considered a very good DC. Do you remember when he retired, and do you find that strange that he did retire at the age of 55?
Brian, I do agree with that. Their claim is that based on the state pension system, since the university is a state institution, he had an opportunity to retire with a terrific package. But you're right. When you have the coaching bug like anybody at that level will have, or you couldn't succeed at that level, you don't just walk away because your retirement package is a little bit better. So I agree. That looks fishy. Now, having said that, the Penn State people that I have talked to say that there have been whisperings around Penn State for decades about Jerry Sandusky, their former defensive coordinator, that there was something weird with him and keep your kids away from him. And so this is not out of the blue something that wasn't completely known.
Yeah, I can't imagine that it was as widespread as the grand jury report suggests it is, and sort of he had this whole system in place and somebody would not have heard about it.
You're right about that. I agree. And the thing is, he was invested at one point by police. And not found to, they didn't convict him or prosecute him at that time. Maybe there wasn't enough evidence, but at least, in my opinion, that would be enough to know that, hey, there might be something wrong here. That's one of the reasons why in 2002, when, according to the grand jury report, it came to the attention of head coach Joe Paterno that Jerry Sandusky had been seen in a locker room in the shower with a young boy by the general or the graduate assistant, Mike McCready, that it should have, at minimum, set off alarm bells from the whispers that Paterno had been hearing. And yet, all he did was go upstairs and tell the athletic director he did not follow through and make sure that a guy who could well be a predator was taken out of circulation. And that's the problem for Paterno.
Barry Switzer said yesterday, former Oklahoma coach with the Cowboys as well, said there's just no way that, other coaches didn't know about this because, things get whispered around and, it's hard to keep secrets, and that the head football coach knows everything that goes on with his program. Yeah.
Well, yeah, for the most part, I agree with that last statement that the head coach knows pretty much everything that goes on. And the thing about this is that they told him after the 2002 incident, this is according to my reading of the grand jury report, that he was no longer allowed to bring young boys to the complex. Well, what that sounds like they're saying is just do it somewhere else. He maintained an office there, for goodness sake. And in my opinion, and this is strong, but I can't get away from this, I believe that if somebody knows, honest to goodness knows, that somebody else is abusing children and does nothing, that person who remains silent is equally culpable in any future abuses, any future molestations. And the person who remains silent can't even make the excuse that they are sick, they have a sickness. No, that person just allowed it to go forward. And anybody who does remain silent has to, in my opinion, look into the eyes of the kids whose trauma they could have prevented and explain to them why they said nothing and allowed it to happen. And this is where I'm so torn, because I believe, based on what we know now, that Coach Joe Paterno had enough information to know that a predator was running loose on the campus of Penn State University and in State College, the town,
All right.
and did nothing. But if I come to that conclusion, I have to believe that Joe Paterno is also as guilty in my mind as Jerry Sandusky in the alleged molestations that occurred after the point that Paterno knew. And so before I make that jump, I'm waiting to hear from Joe Paterno himself to see what he actually knew, to see if he can actually rebut successfully the information that's already out there, because it kills me to think that this guy of all guys is that guy.
Yeah, I want to hear from McQuarrie as well. I mean, listen, I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth whether or not, surely he should have done something to try and stop this or try and get the boy, but whatever, he freaked out. And some people may freak out in that circumstance. But what I don't get with McQuarrie is that if he actually saw this rape take place, and he saw Sandusky, he saw Sandusky after 2002, how could he walk around that facility and see Jerry Sandusky and know what he did to that boy and not say anything and be quiet? How could he live with himself?
See, according to the grand jury report, he told Paterno, and then he had a meeting with the athletic director and other officials, but then left it at that. And I totally agree with you, Brian. How can you see that nothing has been done and then say nothing? Because once again, you are then complicit in any future molestation.
Right.
And the thing is, there is no ambiguity here. There is pure, absolute moral clarity when it comes to this kind of a thing.
Well,
now,
this is so much in the news, Trevor, that we had to get those questions in. But we do want to get a quick assessment of the game this weekend with the Redskins.
Yeah, the Redskins are 3-5. The Dolphins are 1-7. The Dolphins are favored, I think, by about 4.
Wow.
It says a lot about what they think of the Redskins.
Yeah.
What odds makers think of the Redskins. It's not a great matchup in some ways for the Redskins because of Reggie Bush, their running back. He is very, 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 very fast in space. The Redskins linebackers are terrific pass rushers, but they're big guys whose forte is definitely not covering a guy and tracking a guy like Reggie Bush in space. But if the Redskins don't win this game, it's possible they might not win more than 1 or 2 more the entire rest of the season.
So you think my prediction earlier in the season of 10 wins is probably a little over optimistic?
Well, it might have been give or take 5.
Well, see, I tell you, here's the thing. I always start every season. I made that prediction with my heart, not my head. And every season I start, I have this optimism. And short order, I don't know, year after year after year, the Redskins beat it right out of me.
Well, but you know what? I think we all need to learn. Brian, and myself, we need to learn to listen to Mary Catherine when it comes to these kinds of predictions. I think she was probably the closest.
By the way, is this a make or break game for John Beck? Would you sit him down if he doesn't perform well in this game?
No, not necessarily. He would have to perform poorly. If he gets a little bit better from last week, then at this point I'd want to see what he can do with more experience. If he absolutely is terrible and proactively hurts the team, then yeah. But if Beck sits down, if they pull Beck, that's the end of Beck. They will cut Beck as soon as they get a replacement for him.
All right, Trev. Good talk to you as always. We'll do it again on Monday.